Hello, everybody. Hi, welcome to Summer Symposium. We are at week three, believe it or not, of MTEA Summer Symposium. We are so happy to have you here. Those of you who are here right now with us in the space, and also those of you who are watching online later. Just a couple of announcements before we get started with all things dance and understudies and swings tonight. So a reminder that we have a conference coming up January 8th through the 10th of 2026. That's in San Diego, California this year. So get excited. It's going to be awesome. If you want more information about that, check our socials. We'll be updating you shortly with all sorts of details, how to get your presentations and panel suggestions in. That's coming up soon, so be on the lookout for that. Also, I just wanted to let everybody know that these submissions for the MTEA journal are coming up quickly at the end of the month for those non-peer reviewed articles and contributions to Coach's Corner and things like that. The journal is a great way to boost that tenure portfolio. I didn't say that out loud, but it is. So get all of those articles and peer reviewed articles. The due date for that is August 31st. So it is definitely journal season. I think that's it for my announcement. So I'm going to turn it over to Lauren Haughton-Gillis, our upcoming president and fearless leader of MTEA Dance. Thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to share this amazing panel. Some of these people are dear friends of mine, new friends of mine, but all people who are somehow related to being a swing or training swings and or understudies in musical theater. I really wanted this to be a place where current swings, people of all ages kind of can contribute to the conversation. People who are currently in New York working in the industry, but then also a few of us who are starting to train swings or trying to center around a pedagogy or a curriculum for training swings and understudies, because we know after the pandemic, with mental health on everyone's, like on the top of everyone's kind of minds, swinging and understudying is so much more important than it was maybe 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I'm gonna let everyone introduce themselves that's on this panel. I'm Lauren Haughton-Gillis. I'm currently the BFA Director of Music Theater at Florida State University. I went back to school in 2018 with the idea that I wanted to be a professor. I wanted to run a program. I was a swing on Wicked on Broadway and the national tour, on and off for about 11 years, a swing and an understudy in that kind of the big green skit. So that's where I got a lot of my information, is working firsthand. And now a big part of my research and creative activity is centering around how do we get people ready for these jobs that are often tossed to people right out of BFA programs. So I've been working around this and centering around this for a while now, ever since grad school. And I'm so happy to bring this amazing panel to you. I'm going to go ahead and toss it to Jacob Brent. So everyone who's here, Cate Benioff, am I saying that correctly? Thank you. Great. Joanna Carpenter, Ryan Kasperzak, close. Okay. And Correy West, that's who's going to be in the space today. So Jacob, if you want to start us off and then invite someone else to give their intro.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Lauren. Hi, everyone. My name is Jacob Brent. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a professor at Elon University. And Yeah, and I'm exciting thing we're starting. I was Lauren and I have been talking about. She's going to do it in this coming fall, and I'm teaching it in the spring, maybe. This understudy swing course to teach them how I started my career as an understudy or as a swing, and I was kind of thrown into the rehearsal studio, and good luck. And that was sort of, no one really taught me what to do. And then I understudied, and again, it was just like, you just got to do what he does, and when you go on, be just like him. And that was sort of my understudy training. So when I got into higher ed, I really thought like we kind of did the same thing to the students, and then we were expecting them to just know how to do it. And I was like, this needs to change. So um, that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I'm sitting on this panel, I think. So it's great to see everyone, and I'm sure we'll have a great conversation. So I'm going to throw it to Cate if I can.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. It's so nice to meet everyone. I am Cate Benioff, she, her. I'm so excited to be here. Um, I am an actor, dancer based in New York City. I had my first swing experience on the Chicago tour, and just like Jacob was saying, was just thrown in, you know. Uh, did not have good training in college, even though we did have a swing Bible class. It was like nothing like actual swinging. So I'm very passionate about educating new swings and advocating for swings in the industry. Joanna and I also co-founded a swing mentorship program called Swing Nation, which pairs new swings who have never swung before, with experienced swings, just to give them some support and guidance. Because as we all know, swinging can be such a emotionally draining as well as just a really hard job to do. So yeah, that's me. That's why I'm here. Super excited. I will pass it to Correy.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Correy West. I'm from Dallas, Texas, but I am an actor, singer, dancer that's based in New York now. I have tons of experience as a swing. I started out the first Broadway show I ever did. I was a swing, and embarrassingly enough, I didn't even really know what a swing was when I got the job because it was pretty. I hadn't lived in New York too long. So yeah, so that's the kind of that's another one of many reasons why this situation is so important. Yes, I swung South Pacific. I've swung on tour. I did the Love Never Dies tour. I was a swing in that, and I swung workshops. I did a workshop that Susan Stroman had directed and choreographed. I was a swing in that. And then most recently, a couple of years ago, I swung on Broadway the show called Ain't Too Proud, where I was swing and also an understudy. So I understudied 3 of the 5 leads on top of swinging 8 tracks as well in the show. So it was pretty insane. I'm currently down in Michigan right now doing a production of Mary Poppins playing Bert, and Mary Poppins in a play down here, doing a show at Yale Rep after this. So a play at Yale Rep. So, moving and shaking. But, and I also started, because of my experience as a swing, I started a master class on swinging. Because I always say swinging is so personal and it's so individual. Everyone learns differently. Everyone processes information differently. So that's one of the main things that I focus on in my workshop that Lauren knows all about. And I go to different universities all over the United States and teach. So I'd love to talk to everyone here more about that as well. So I'm going to pass it on to Joanna.
First off, Correy, I am also currently in Michigan. I don't know where you are, but I'm in Kalamazoo. Where are you?
Oh, I'm in Holland.
Oh my God,
Right outside.
hi!
We're
So
neighbors.
close so far. Amazing.
Whoa.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here. So excited that this panel was put together. My name is Joanna Carpenter, she, her pronouns. Cate mentioned that I'm one of the co-founders of Swing Nation, our delightful mentorship program. I made my Broadway debut as a swing in Sweeney Todd, the most recent revival, and then left Sweeney to go swing and dance captain The Connector off Broadway at MCC, Jason Robert Brown's new show, and then ended up going back to Sweeney after The Connector closed. Both of those experiences, because Sweeney was my first time swinging, both of those experiences really, really fueled my light bulb moment of kind of the spark of creation of Swing Nation, in collaboration with the Harriet Tubman Effect and Cate and Nicole Johnson, who founded the Harriet Tubman Effect. I also am, among other things, I currently sit on the negotiations team for the production contract. So we are about to go toe to toe with the Broadway League for however long it takes to get a new Broadway contract. And there is a lot of lovely advocacy for swings and understudies and standbys. There's a lot of momentum for that in this negotiation cycle, which I feel like there's a lot of symbiosis happening between academia and the actual market, both commercially and at the regional and national level. So very excited to be here and to chat things. And I think it's Ryan next, yeah? Yes.
Yes, thank you. I grew up in Michigan, but I am not in Michigan at the moment. Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Kasperzak. I'm currently the head of musical theater at Montclair State University in New Jersey. And like most people, I spent the majority of my career as a swing and a dance captain, and then later as an associate choreographer. And I think that was the time I was in the process of getting my graduate degree while I was an associate choreographer on some big shows. And so like even the swings we would hire for that were fresh out of school and they didn't know anything. And I was sort of like, oh, these are my people. I can help these people. And so it became a little bit of my graduate work. And then now at Montclair State, it is my absolute favorite thing to teach. I'm really passionate about it. As I say to my students, if you, in the course that I teach, which is called Understanding Swings and Understudies, my goal is that by the end of this course, you will say, you know what, I think I can do this. Like I have the right feel, I have the right temperament, I'm organized, or nope, not for me, never, ever, no. And I think that's important because I do think there are a lot of people that say yes, and they're like, they just want to be in the show. And I think there are amazing actors and amazing performers that are not great swings. And sometimes if you end up miscast in that part, it can affect how people think about you. And again, my goal is that doesn't happen to any of my students. And it's okay if they're like, nope, never. I confidently pass if the opportunity arises. So anyway, it's exciting to see that there's so many people and educators interested in swings and understudies, and thank you for organizing this panel. I'm excited to be here.
Ryan, I have not talked to you yet. We've emailed a bit, but that is the number one thing because I have so many people they see my resume and they're like, oh gosh, here's the swing understudy lady. And that's what I want to do. I want to empower students by the time they graduate to be like, if you get that audition from your agent and it says swing and you know that you're going to have to cover 10 people, you can say no. I don't want to go in for that show. I want to wait till there's a track so you have the power to do that, the knowledge, right? I'm so glad you said that because a lot of my students think I'm going to make them into like little swing robots. And I'm like, no,
Right.
I just want you to know if you like it or not, right? Really.
Yes, absolutely. It's an experiential class. And at the end of the experience, you'll be like, yeah, I love swimming with sharks. Or you'll be like, nope, not for me.
Yeah, that's so great. And you were also just to tell you that you were very modest, but you were the dance supervisor for Hamilton for a time. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I was the dance supervisor on Hamilton for quite a while, and then as a performer, I was a dance captain and an associate on Billy Elliot, and Fosse was my first job as a dance captain. Which, hi Sarah Ripper, nice to see you. I think Brent was your roommate. Was on that show with me, and he was a dance captain as well. And boy, we were in the trenches there. That was my first swing gig. Anyway, it's nice to see you.
So you've done some tiny little shows, little Billy Elliot, Hamilton. Great to have you in the space. Great to have you all with us today. I just want to start and you can come at this question from as a professor or as a teacher or as a performer. What are the top skills you think are essential for someone pursuing a career as a swing and or understudy? Or what did you discover about yourself that matched this position?
I guess I can start if we're gonna snake back. So the one thing that I don't think I anticipated that I think is essential, and I think I was good at, is this idea of calm under pressure, and just the people who have no panic in them. And again, I keep referring back to this class that I teach, and talked to them about my mantra was, it was be prepared, be present, be fearless. And I think that last one is huge. And I think sometimes goes unnoticed because, yes, you have to be calm, but also like you're entering into a space of people who have done this show 200 times, 500 times, 800 times, and they are at a level of 190%. You can't come in at 30. Like you have to go, and you have to go big. And if you make a mistake, which is inevitable, you need to have a short memory and keep going. And I think that part of the temperament sometimes is underestimated, because I think there are people who have the other skills that I think people are going to talk about in a second, but maybe don't have that one.
Yeah, I can follow that. Humility will serve you. Perfectionism will never serve you. Like going in, and we were treated very well at Sweeney. Like we were very adequately resourced in most ways. And also like the company was really good about featuring the swings on social media and having, like a lot of cultural things that helped us feel like we were really part of this larger machine. As a recovering perfectionist, I realized very quickly that like you have to be okay with not ending up in the perfect spot. Like the night I made my debut, I landed in the wrong spot and just got shuffled while singing, and everybody else was still. And it's those things that you're just like, "Oh my God, why didn't I do that right?" And it's because you stood in the spot that you thought you were going to stand in the next show. So humility, great. Perfectionism, let it go.
Yeah, I think I 100%, Joanna. That's like, I always say that's one of the things I love about swinging is being a perfectionist as well, letting all that go and being okay with like, I'm gonna mess some stuff up, but that's okay. I don't even have time to think about that because I have another costume change and whatever. So yeah, 1,000,000% agree with that. For me, and I don't know if we have time for this, but I would love to hear other people's experience or ideas about this. I think it's like it was finding out or having a strong sense of self, because there's the skill aspect of swinging, but there's also the psychological aspect of swinging as well, because you're not in the playing company. So, and not everyone goes to school to like be sitting in the dressing room while the show is going on and not being a part, and someone having FOMO like me, not being a part of everything, or the inside jokes that happen on stage during the show, and or when the Tony Awards happen and you're not a part of it because you're a swing, or the cast recording. It's a lot of psychological stuff that I've just seen people tear people apart, that might not necessarily have a strong sense of self, mentally, and know their worth as a performer. So I think that was the biggest thing that I learned about myself, was like, okay, I believe in myself, I believe in my abilities, and I could stand by that. And I'm okay with the position that I'm doing, because I'll be quiet. But one thing that I've learned from when I taught at a lot of universities, especially universities that are starting to have swings in their in their shows, is that a lot of the kids don't necessarily know enough about it. So when they get offered a swing position in college, they think it's because they're not as good as everyone that is in the show. I've mentored and I've talked to different people that have felt that way. So I don't know how. I would love to hear other people's experience on that, or ways to discuss that with people. But
Yeah, I totally hear you, Corey. I'm going to come back to that, but first, just wanted to add on to what you said about just having to be super mentally strong. I think that was like the biggest surprise to me in my swing experience with Chicago. Just how much, I can't remember. I think it was Ryan. You were talking about having to be so calm, and for me, I am a very calm person, but it was about feeling the fear and then doing it anyway. Like I'm going to be scared and I'm going to be anxious. And yes, I'm climbing up this ladder that I've never climbed before because we have not had a put in. So unsafe, but I'm going to feel the fear and I'm going to do it anyway, right? That 100%, you still have to do it, even if you're feeling the fear. So much mental fortitude comes with it. And the other skills that I think I just luckily like am already a very detail oriented person, and that lends itself super well to swinging, you know? And the other thing that I found out that I was like, oh, I can use this skill that I'm using in life in swinging is like, I'm really good at compartmentalizing, you know, separating different parts of my life, which is something that I like really latched onto when I was swinging and was like, all right, let me put this character here, this track here, you know. So it is like everyone is saying, it is such a thing that like some people already have those traits inside of them and they're like, okay, let me access those. And some people, it's just not for you. And that's like totally okay.
I'm curious, I'm just like spitballing here, but I love hearing, Joanna, that you felt culturally like a part of the company and they included you on social media. Like I have not always heard that. Like, and it's nice to know that on Broadway, some cast and or management companies are doing this now. I'm curious if there's anything us professors can replicate, because I'm feeling that in at my university they're like, I'm just sitting alone in the audience every night and I'm not like, are there ways in which we can cultivate what you experienced at Sweeney like that so they feel more a part of the company? I'm not sure if there's anything you could pass on, but
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's kind of multiple pathways to it, two primary categories of pathways. There's internal culture and then there's external culture, right? So let's say you are doing a production of Rent and you have swings and there's like a social media thing around it. The swings should be just as involved in any promotion of the show, photography, et cetera, as the rest of the playing cast. Like that should be foundational. And coming at it from the perspective, you know, like from leadership in a teacher position, you also, I think it's very important to make it clear that what you might be doing within the microcosm of your school show is not necessarily going to be replicated in the market. You know, you can set really high expectations, and then these kids will go out and get their first job as a swing and get treated terribly and go, wait, this is not how it was in school. So I think setting up how the treatment should be with the very clear caveat that this is not how it's always going to be. That's the kind of external facing culture. And then I think internally there's a really good opportunity to not just teach swings how they should expect to be able to participate in rehearsals, in, you know, like how you set up your space. Are the swings adequately included in your rehearsal space versus being shuffled off to go sit in a corner and take notes and observe, which is happening on Broadway very often. It's not just about teaching the swings how to navigate the space, but it's about teaching your principals and your ensemblists in that same show how to treat the swings, because they too will inevitably be in positions where they feel a little excluded, where they feel a little smaller. And so if you get in on the ground with these kids and start uh, building those empathy bridges and training those expectations and those neurons very early on, you're effectively releasing an entire generation of much more empathetic artists into a market that is inevitably driven by scarcity, but that can shift if you've got people who have had leadership in academia teaching them how things can be versus versus a school replicating how it is in the market, which is pretty gross in a lot of ways still.
yeah, Jacob, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, it seems like a good time to add to this. Just also language around it. It sounds silly, but I really tried a few productions ago, like you are not understudying student A is not understudying student B. Student A is understudying the role of Mary. And so we always say you're on for Mary, you're not on for this actor. So it feels like we share the role. We're working with the role and not I'm freshman and I'm understudying the senior, which is weird, right? Or senior understudying senior sometimes, right? Like what however it works out. But yeah, so I think around language of that and inclusive and being inclusive with that is a good place to start too.
And I think it's like encouraging them as well. Like going into what I said before, when I talk to kids or students in college that are swinging, I make sure that they know that, like, you know, when a show is looking for a swing, they're looking for someone with a wide range of skills, and that's why you're in this position. Not because you can be this person, you can be Will Parker, you can be Curly, you can be whoever, you know, all these different people within a show. So just encouraging them and empowering them, and the abilities that they do have, and why they're in the position that they're in. Yeah.
I think language is a huge thing too, because like one of the things I talk about on the first day is that I hate that the course is covered called Understanding Swings and Understudies. Because again, in the industry, we really use the term cover, right? Which is such a positive thing. The idea of covering is like we have this bonus, we have this covered, you know, and the language, again, the linguistics of understudy denotes something below something. And I think that is one wonderful thing about our business is that term has kind of faded away. But on an educational perspective, we're bringing it back because that's what people know. But you make a great point, Jacob, which is like, oh, maybe we should try and do a little better at kind of phasing that out too.
I have a question. It's a little bit of a pivot, but like similar. So I remember back in feels like the dark ages. So this has been coming up professionally as a choreographer too, but uh my contract always said as a swing as cast, right? And then I got, to the first day and the PSM was like there are 3 swings. So your first covers are these and the second covers are these, but you are responsible for all. And I did go on for all. It was just kind of, there was an order of who I was in charge of, right? I'm curious because, when we're setting up our casts at university, the students really want to know, like, oh, there's 2 swings, so who am I? And I always tell them that, but I'm curious if that's still the case. Is it still, I love that you're working with equity, Joanna. Um, is it still just as cast, or are they getting to a place where they're being more specific, or is that just as the show develops? Or I'm curious about the breakdown so we can replicate that.
Yeah, it's interesting because without giving anything away that I'm not supposed to, the early caucusing sessions with the negotiations team and the production contract committee, we were in the weeds about the term as cast because it is so abused, it is so manipulated, it's so chaotic, and it's a way for, frankly, producers to get as much work as they can for as little money as they can, right? I think it feels like, and other people correct me if I'm wrong, if you've seen this in other ways, it feels like I don't think the term as cast is going away so much as it feels like a lot of creative team members are doing a better job of going, these are your priority tracks, but you cover everybody. And Sweeney was interesting because that was the one show, like that was a show where we did not have priority tracks. And there was like a hypothetical, like the major sopranos amongst the swings would like probably go on for the sopranos, but we had so many moments where we're like, especially when the flats went on, we're like, why is the tenor going on for, like, it didn't make any sense. And that was a battle that we had to fight in that building a lot. Um, it feels like we're kind of at a 50-50 place in terms of who's using as cast, and it also seems like it's really depending on the show because we have such a range and spectrum of scale at the commercial level right now. So mathematically, like, we don't actually have the data on that, but I do think it's still very, very common in the contract, and it is a thorn in the side of anybody who's been working commercially for more than a year.
Yeah, I'm going to get to you in a second, Ryan, because I always set up my casts very systematically, and I have your first covers are these, and like they go on and everything, but but I always tell them in the real world, you just gotta know everybody. So I was just curious if that's changing, but thank you for
Because
that
it's
answer.
still a contingency of employment a lot of times. Like the as cast is in your writer and you either take the job or you don't. And that's
okay.
Not our favorite.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm giving that information then. I didn't want to be giving false information. Okay, Ryan, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Joanna, as the union representative, a few years ago, I think in the last round of production negotiations, they started putting limits on the number of roles that swings can cover, which again, when back in the ancient days, you could go on for children or women or whatever, they just put you out there. I'm just curious what the status of that is now, and if you as a union representative, you're willing to share, like, how do we as a union feel about that? Do swings seem to feel like it's adequate, that it needs to be reduced, that they're okay? I mean, I'm just curious, like, the up-to-date nerdy parameters around it.
Yeah, so as it stands right now on the production contract specifically, a single swing can cover up to 10 tracks, and that includes principals, which is, excuse my language, fucking insane still. Like, it's absolutely insane. The big win that did happen in the last round of production contract negotiations that got ratified in 2022, it used to be that a single swing could split an unlimited number of tracks. So if I was on, I could cover 2, 8, 10, like whatever was needed to like do the show that night. There was no cap on the amount of split tracks that you could do. The last round of negotiations, before you got paid extra, this is the caveat, before you got paid extra, the last round of negotiations did not put a cap on how many tracks you can split, but they did get it to the point where if you split more than 5 tracks, then you get a little bump. You get an extra, I don't know, couple $100 for playing more than 5 people in one show, which is a deep health and safety issue. So that's where it stands right now. The data that we have, and also the cultural conversations that we're having, is that like it's still very dangerous. Split tracks are happening all the time. Producers do not want to hire adequate coverage. The way shows are getting built, people are getting injured left and right. There's just not adequate resourcing at all. So still trash. We'll see what happens this time around.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on that at Swing Nation, we're like super passionate about also advocating for non-union swings, because the Chicago tour was non-union that I was on. And just wanted to add that like these are great, and we're so excited about the union implementing all of these rules, because hopefully it will give non-union productions a guideline to follow as well. But there's just so much, it's literally the Wild West, on a non-union tour or on any sort of non-union production. There are no rules. You can cover as many people as you want. You're not getting a bump when you go on. You're not getting a bump when you split track. You're not getting any sort of bumps, so it's just like, it's just a whole nother world. And so grateful to have joined the union and have those protections now.
I want to go and talk a little bit about process, and this is going to be like probably a 5-fold question, or however we want to go. Developing, Correy, you talked about this a bit, and we've talked about this personally as two swings, just chatting. But how different the swing process looks for each individual human. And then also, if you're more of a singer, if you're more of a dancer in a show, what the show is, right? There's not one way in. And there are some fantastic books out there, but there isn't really like this method, right? This is how you swing, period, right? If you open this book, you will swing at the end of the book. So I'm curious, about if you're willing to share your process, if you're able to take us through that, or as a professor, if there's a way in which you guide that they can find their own process, or is there a process you're kind of like, Ryan, are you kind of showing them what you did and seeing if that works for them? I'm just curious about process, and how you found it personally, and or how you're finding it as a professor. Or Swing Nation, are you like when you set up the mentees and the mentors, is that something you talk about? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first. For me, what I learned about myself and as a swing was how important the information I kept was. I needed to access the information as quickly as possible and have it be as digestible as possible for me, that I could just jump into a role or track. So that's kind of one of the main things that I focus on when I teach about swinging or I teach workshops and stuff. It's just like, how do you document your information? And that's go through that. I do exercises and how to document, because that's completely different for everybody. And that's something that you definitely will not be able to teach, because how I keep my information is not going to be the same way as Joanna or Kate or Ryan or Jay, you know what I mean? So I always joke that, like, you're looking at another swings book or, their information. It's like reading hieroglyphics, you know what I mean? Like, like I don't know what any of this means. So I like to focus on that with everyone. And I feel like that a lot of the kids are really responding to that because, I think that's a huge part of swinging. And then also I focus on not just, there's your on-stage stuff and your on-stage track, but there's also your off-stage track. Like, what do you do behind the scenes when you go off stage? What do you pick up your prop? Or do you put your prop back? Whose way do you need to get out of because they have to go do a quick change? And you know what I mean? So that's another kind of technical thing that I work on with them as well. Yeah.
Do you actually get out your notes and like show them what you did? So you have like kind of great. So
yeah.
Shorthand. You are
just to be like, this is what I do. I take a bigger picture and I make it smaller, because obviously it's different swinging as a replacement than swinging as an original company. So I kind of approach both of those ways as well. Like, this is what you would do or you could potentially do if you were coming in as a replacement and they're teaching you, because I feel like I've been a replacement a few times as a swing, and they teach you one track at a time, as opposed to when you start from day one and, like Joanna was saying, they throw you in a corner and then they're like, have at it. You have no idea who to start with, what to do. So I focus on, for me, I take a bigger picture and make it smaller. I'm like, I take the whole, let me see what's happening once they start learning the information, once they start staging it. Okay, now let me take this one track and, okay, this is what they do. Now, where do they enter stage? Where do they exit stage? What prop do they have? And then I start with that one person, and then I branch out to others. So I call it like a big picture, make it smaller kind of situation. And I kind of teach that, and for some people that might not work. So but that's where I start with how I do it.
Kate, do you want to talk about how we kind of tend to pair people and like how we approach our intake process at Swing Nation, just getting to know the mentees?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so at Swing Nation, we have everyone who's interested in being a mentee fill out a Google form just about their experience, how they identify, anything else they want to share about how they learn or who they are. And we then go from there. Oh, also, if they are dance captaining, swinging, what exactly the tracking is, so that we can pair them with people who have similar experience. We want to pair experienced dance captains with people who are dance captaining for the first time and swinging for the first time. And then it really just goes from there. Yeah, and we always tell people to share their systems. Like, for me, the system that worked for me was, I don't have them here, but pretend these sticky notes are like note cards. I had like a book of note cards that I took with me everywhere backstage when I was swinging. I know that a lot of people like to do that. That method really worked for me. The other swings on my show did not have note cards. They had like full pieces of paper, and I was like, how are you carrying around a full piece of paper? Why are you doing that to yourself? Other people use Stage Right. I'm just like a pencil, pen, and paper sort of gal. So I like to like physically, write out the formations. Like Correy was saying, when I was learning it in the rehearsal, I was drawing big picture formations, right? Getting like down like the where is everyone in the show, and then focusing in on one track and being like, okay, let me write down this whole track, but in a note card so it's easily digestible and I can just find the page I need when I need that information. I feel like I went off the train there. Joanna, do you want to add anything?
Wait, can I say something real quick, Kate, just about that? Everyone I've swung with, they think I'm crazy because I'll get a copy of the script for each part that I understudy or I swing, and I'll just write all the blocking and do all the stuff in that. And I do it by act. So I'll look at all of Act One, I get all that stuff, and then I put that away. And then I just do Act One without even looking at my notes or anything. And then I do the same for Act Two. And people think I am that crap crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm so different from either of you two. I'm a very kinesthetic learner. Like I'm very physical and you can give me I'm a tracking sheet girly just to like before I go on, it's like, okay, just scan the thing. Great, amazing. Just for entrances and exits and whatever. But if I don't walk it physically, it is completely hypothetical. It's like when something is not in your calendar, it does not exist. If something cannot get in my body, it does not exist. And to that end, I think, especially for all the educators in the room, this is where I think it comes into play, where it's so important that you are drilling down into your swings and your future swings, really having an awareness and understanding of how they learn, because if they understand how they learn, they can understand how to ask for what they need. The biggest issue, especially going into any show, is nobody is going to anticipate your needs for you. Nobody is going to be proactive about resourcing you as a swing. They're just not going to. And so going back to what Correy was saying about like having a sense of self, like I think it was Correy, just if you know going into your first, second, third, 10th gig as a swing, this is how I learn. Therefore, this is how I know how to advocate for the resourcing that I personally need so that I can do my job to the best of my ability. If I don't have a physical rehearsal and you want me to read something off of paper, I'm not going to do a good job and it's not going to be safe. If I can walk through something once on my feet, great, I'm in. Like I got thrown on for one of the alto tracks with 30 minutes notice. And I walked her entire show once with the dance captain, confirmed spots, nailed it, like had no issues. But that was because I knew I had to move through it physically. And that's just me. And like, you know, everybody has different needs. So I think these young ones, if we can condition them to recognizing what they need instead of going, well, other people do it like this and like I can just do it like that. No, you can't. No, you can't. I mean, maybe you can, but like you shouldn't feel that way.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
I'll just talk a bit, and Sarah in the chat and I are talking about some of the tech. So, Stage Right is sort of the industry standard for making charts. And we could have a whole sidebar about that app and what we love and what we hate about that app, but it kind of is the only game in town at the moment. So we use that, and I will say, if you're interested in educational licensing, Stage Right can be very generous with that. They gave us 20 licenses for to use throughout the year for our various productions and in class, and they're great about it. So there's that, and in my class, everybody has to make one chart and everybody has to make one tracking sheet. And I show examples of some of my tracking sheets, and I also show Stephanie Clemens' tracking sheets because hers are really pretty and beautiful. And it's like, okay, you could do this, or you could do this like chicken scratch thing that I do. And again, it's the like you have talked about, it's the most important thing is them understanding what is best for them. And I talk about some of the shorthand that I use, cross, diagonal line, down, right, DR, like I highlight in blue every prop that I touch, things like that. And it's the most important thing is getting them on the path to figuring out what their version is, and then allowing space for whatever their version is. And again, they don't really get to test it out fully in the way that you do in a long run and be like, oh, the big pages are problematic because I can't fit them in my costume, or whatever. But it's a start. And I think, as an educator, the things that I do feel are essential, they need to know about the holy trilogy of every swing's life, which is the archive, the tracking sheet, and the charts. And those are your weapons when you go into battle. Like, those are the things. And, there will be different variations of how people use those tools, but I kind of feel like that's it. That's the toolkit.
Can I ask a quick question of all of y'all? Oh, sorry, Jacob.
I'll add on after you ask your question.
Oh, I was just going to ask like Joanna or Kate or any of y'all, Ryan. I'm finding that now with swings, it's like a little easier because there seems to be a lot more people taping rehearsals. I don't know if y'all find the same thing, which makes it a little easier to then go home and process things or go back and look at a recording that you get, you get a couple hours before the show, you're like, oh, you're on for this part. And then you can go back and look at that little, recording of you dancing or whoever dancing in rehearsal. I don't know if y'all find that that's happening or if that's helpful or.
That's my next question, because I came up when iPhones were new and we couldn't really tape. But that's, as a choreographer now, it's pretty much standard. It goes into a private Google Drive. But at universities, sometimes guest directors, choreographers don't want things taped, So I'm just curious if that's standard in the industry still, and if it's shared among like stage manager to swings to dance captains, because it feels like a great resource. I just don't want to give the wrong information, because different companies, different shows have different policies. So I'm just curious if that's kind of standard, or now that you
Broadway at the moment, it feels like there's still a little squishiness around it. There's still a little bit of protective behavior around it, and off Broadway as well. And so I know of a lot of people who have had to go to battle with their stage managers to say, do you want to resource me or not? I had to do that with Connector. Stage management did not want to give me access to videos. And so I just started taking my own videos in rehearsal, and I built my own separate Google Drive for all of the swings because we had multiple types of learners. And I was basically like, sorry, we're going to go on during previews. I know it's going to happen and we're not going to be caught unawares. Sweeney, they would not give us access to footage, but we did have access. We were like always watching the show up in the green room. So we're able to kind of track like that. And we had constant weekly rehearsals. So that was helpful. But yeah, there's still a little bit of protectionism, it feels like. And then other rooms are like, take what you need. So again, it seems like there is a chunk of the industry that is evolving into recognizing what's needed and how technologically we can give it to people. And then there's a more traditionally minded sect of the industry that is still like, nope, I don't trust people on social media, and their close friends stories and all of that. So kind of split.
Yeah, I would say in my experience, it's been very open regionally and on tour. Everyone, my stage managers have always been like, "Yep, here's the archival video, and you're gonna always have access to it." And I have been lucky enough to always also have stage managers that when I go on will be like, "Here's the video of your show if you want to watch it back." So that's always been a resource that I have had access to, and haven't ever, I mean, there's always obviously like, never share this ever, do not post anything, you will get in so much trouble. But I've always had access to it as a swing and a dance captain.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, like, Lauren, when I was coming up, like, unless you brought in like the camcorder and like film something, like that was it. So yeah, you just learned in the back. But now I think it's different. Like I'm doing anything goes right now. They're teching as I'm in this Zoom, but they're I swear every 8 count I choreographed, someone was like, we need it filmed. And I was like, oh my gosh. So the opposite way, I was like, enough, like let us do the whole phrase before we film it. But yeah, and just to circle back a little bit, I want to just something that I'm finding with teaching students, right? We're saying find the thing that works for you. And I feel like that can be difficult for some students in higher education because they are there they want to know the answer to get the A, right? So they're like, what is it that I want to do? So it's challenging for them when it's such an open thing to be like, you just have to find it. Like you can find it yourself. You can do whatever you want. And I find it like it's difficult for them to be like, am I writing this down correctly? I think it's just one of those things that I want to throw out there that I have found a challenge teaching younger actors to come up with their own system and eventually they get it, but it's a little more difficult getting started because they want to make sure they're doing it correctly, and you're like, yes, you are doing it correctly, keep going, but it's just I find that a little bit of a challenge for them.
Yeah, I was just gonna say for me personally, swinging feels a lot like a memorization test, like any sort of memorization test that I did throughout school. And so my prep for going on was always like whatever I had done in school that I knew was gonna help me remember what I had to do for the test. It was like what it felt like um to go on. So for me, it's like looking at my note cards. That's what I literally would do as a kid when I was like studying for a test was get note cards, memorize the words from note cards. So I feel like I don't know if that's a helpful thing for kids to relate to. Like, how do you study for a test? Maybe you can try that strategy first and then try a different strategy.
I
Yeah,
think. Oh, sorry.
absolutely. Go ahead. Oh, I
No,
was
no.
going to say, technology wise, there is an app called Arrange Us that's like used for dance teacher competition people, and it's free and it's much simpler. It's just much as streamlined than Stage Right. It's not as fancy. You don't get as much stuff. Um, but it's got people and you just drag and drop them. And then you go to the next thing and you move them real quickly. Like you can't really put like set pieces into the back, into the thing, but it's a really great way. It's quick, and I have found it to be much faster um, app to use than
What's it
um,
called again?
it's called Arrange Us, and I get no money
Notability
from
is
them.
also pretty good if you don't need sets and things, because like if you draw a shape and then hold it, the shape will pop up and you can write initials in there and do like a quick chart that way.
Mm. Yeah, Jacob, and all of y'all, Ryan, talking about Stage Right. I actually work with Jeff Whiting, who created Stage Right, and God, I love him, but Stage Right is like, it ain't easy.
It's awesome, but you need a person there to just do that for you, right?
Yeah, I've had him walk me through so many things. I'm like, I don't understand this, but the dimensions are off. Yeah, so I was just gonna add to what your question, or Jacob, about like kids and getting them to really process the information that they're when they're writing things down. And I always like to say that I preference it with saying, I need you to write things down in to where you can process that information as quickly as possible. You're not just writing stuff down you can't as a swing, you can't write every little thing down. It can't be super duper detailed, because you're not always going to have the time to then go through it and look at it in a detailed way. So you have to like shorthand things, and you have to just like, how do I write this down to where I can grab this information as quickly as possible and then do what I need to do, as opposed to thinking that it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not necessarily going to be perfect. It just has to be like perfect to you, like how you learn stuff.
Yeah, Jacob, when I taught the class, I felt for the same thing. They don't know how they learn yet. And I think I get a lot of these questions as a dance professor too. Like, newer dancers are like, I can't pick up the combo, but I don't even know how I pick up a combo because I've never really danced, because I only sang and acted before I came to school. So they're like trying to figure out how they learn in real time. So when I taught the swing class, I made them do both. Like I made them turn in their written stuff. Like it sounds like what Cate did. I did the note card thing. I had different colored note cards for different tracks, and but like I made them do like a note card situation or like a shorthand. And then I also made them do the physical, like Joanna, it seems like she learns like that. So they hopefully deciphered quickly, like if they're one or the other. Now there's a lot of in-betweens too, but it like the exercise of both, I was hoping helped them like circle around if they're more of one learner than the other.
I almost wonder if there's a viability to picking like three large buckets of information processing. So you have like kinesthetic learning, like you're going to learn how to put something in your body without writing anything down. We're going to block this scene, we're going to choreograph this number, and this is how you're going to learn it. And then there's note cards and tracking sheets, and then there's just visuals, right? Where like you have videos of things. And it almost feels like kind of kind of the vibe of like Stephen Sondheim saying content dictates form, but like you have larger edges on the sandbox and somebody splashes around in one sandbox and they're like, I am not a kinesthetic learner. I know that now. Let me experiment with tracking sheets. So there's not this kind of like diner menu where a student is like, I don't know how I learn. Oh my God, like I just have to pluck something out of thin air, but you're not micromanaging and dictating exactly how their process should be. It's like they're tossed into the shallow end and there's options, but they're still being guided a little bit. It seems like those three kind of like pathways might be supportive to people figuring out their learning journey.
Yeah, like different units. Like if you're doing different production numbers, you know, there's also an alignment of how we're tracking, how we're learning this number versus how we're going to learn it in this unit, you know. That's really great, Joanna. Thank you for
Yeah,
commenting
I'm just
a
thinking
lot of
like we
things.
do that already too. And we do it at Elon with our acting, right? Like you get like this style, and like these techniques, and you kind of choose your own adventure. So I just making that into one class this way would be awesome. Thanks, Joanna.
Great. I would love to, if you care to share, Ryan, like, I'd love to hear a little bit about the class you are teaching and how long you've taught it. And then like anything. And then also like, you know, I'd love to branch out. The next question is gonna be very specific to Swing Nation, like the successful stories about what's come out of your class and maybe something that's not as successful, you know, just as there's
Hmm.
educators in the room and we're starting to formulate how to teach swings.
Yeah, as you were talking about your class, Lauren, I was thinking, I was like, oh, I wonder how her class is structured. So I would also love to hear about that. So mine, it's a semester-long course. We meet once a week for, I think the first time I did it, it was only like an hour and 15, and now it's like 2 or something. Um, I put up one number, and I usually pick something that's like sort of an ensemble driven number. First time I taught the class, we did Snuff That Girl from Urinetown, and last semester we did Freak Flag from Shrek. So many characters. Gender fluid is hugely important because it never works out. So anyway, we put up the number, and in that A version, everyone, is casting one role. Usually I have a couple extra that are like, I assign one dance captain per cast. I do 3 casts throughout the semester, or sometimes 2 dance captains who will sort of facilitate. Anyway, so we put up the number, and then first day is like a big Q&A, and I just assess what they know, what they don't know. Then we put up the number, then we pause for like a couple weeks, and we talk through all the tech stuff, and we talk through, this is what a tracking sheet is, this is how we do the charts, etc. And during that time, we're using the archive from that first cast, right? And so together, like, we do one chart, right? And I put it up on the screen, and I'm doing stage right, and we're doing all this, so they see what it looks like, and everyone asks questions, and we go through and do all that. And then they go through and do the rest of the charts. And we go through together after we've made the first chart in the archive, and we go and we'd be like, okay, where do you think we need a new chart? Stop. Oh, right here, this pyramid. Okay, cool, great. That's chart 2. Susie is going to make chart 2. And so we assign who's going to make what charts together. Um, and then after that's done, then we just start over. And so the second cast is like what it would be the first understudy rehearsal after opening night. We go in, and now everybody has been reshuffled, and we work our way through it. And then the third cast, they do themselves. So the dance captains lead those rehearsals, and they're putting up the third version of one number. And then the final is my favorite. So they come in, and I create hypothetical scenarios based on real things that I've experienced or heard about. And it's like, okay, and I always nickname the casts based on characters, okay, so we think we're doing the Farquaad show today, but oh my gosh, Joanna like rolled her ankle running down the subway, and Corey, 2 show day, he had Chipotle, he's going to be out, and it's like we just make up like really, Jacob's at his sister's wedding, and then they have to figure it out. And so at this point, they have three casts of characters that they think they can put wherever, and so they go through, and it's like, oh, okay, so we don't have Pinocchio in this cast, but Kate covered Pinocchio from this cast. So if she goes out of the witch, Jacob covers and they figure it out. It's wild to watch, which is, that they end up putting together a cut show, and then they have some time to look at their notes or step through. In the course of doing the three companies, we kind of try and flag what would be like our safety call moments, and I always make the number unnecessarily complicated with like crossovers and, three people go this way and four people go that way so they can experience that. And then they sort of highlight like, okay, these are three sections we need to go through. So then they map it out, we step through those, and we do the number. And we do that 3 times in the final. And that's it.
That's amazing. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I love it because it's so fun, and it's my favorite thing.
One number for the whole semester, or is that a unit?
No, one number for the whole semester because it takes that much time to get through 3 versions.
Yeah, I think I did too many production numbers. I've only taught a class one semester.
Mm-hmm. And so you did multiple numbers.
Yeah, I taught it with a music director, so we could also talk about how do you learn the alto, soprano, and and he was really hard on them because I used to tell them my music director listened to the mics personally, and he would give you notes if you weren't singing that one B flat in the so he would drill them personally, one by one, go down the line with every single vocal track. So one number would be vocal focused, one number would be a little more dance focused, and stylistically I was trying to achieve too much, Ryan, is what I think I learned. But I think that the breakdown and focusing on one number, more learning outcomes, right? Surrounding swinging, the charting, all the things you're talking about. I think that's
one of the things I like about it is they start to make some connections that you make during the show, which is, if you learn one track all the way through, which is always my suggestion, then every track that you add on, you recall in relationship to that track, right? It's like, oh, in this section, I don't know the wolf, but I did learn Little Red, who stands next to the wolf, and they do the same part. You know what I mean? And so it helps. And also, just like in a show, every time you learn a new track, you're going back to the same book. And so every day does get a little easier, and you do know a little bit more. And so by the end of the semester, they don't need to go over the steps for certain sections. Those are like locked in. Now they're thinking about, the tracking and the patterns and the traffic and stuff like that.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, because I know it's a lot to curate.
Again, it's so interesting to hear. And again, all of us could right now, crib out what we think it would look like, and it would be different. And again, it's all so useful. So it's so nice to hear what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, so I want to, this is a big pivot again, because I just want to hear about each one. You're all so special, like specialists in your own right, with your own swing and understudy experience. I want to understand, Joanna and Kate, how long Swing Nation's been around, and like where you are with how you really match people up. How do you actually have you been a mentor to people, and what that looks like on the inside as well? So like kind of from the outside in as people running it, but then also as a mentor, what has been helpful? Because what we're doing at school is similar to being a mentor. So any guidance you can give us that has been helpful in that arena.
For sure. I won't speak to Kate's experience as a mentor, but we have both mentored. In terms of how long we've been around, we officially launched the beginning of Q4 last year. So our pilot program was October, November, and December. And we had a finite amount of funding just to see if this thing would work. And it worked really well. The press release came out in Playbill, and we got an explosive response, not just from mentees, but also from like a lot of people across the industry that we had never met who were like, I want to support this. I want to be part of this. I wish something like this had been around when I started swinging. So that told us that we were pointed in the right direction. And then we took a little bit of a break, and then we officially relaunched in perpetuity in what, February, Kate? Is that February? I don't know. It was like 10 years ago. So many things are happening. So yeah, we exist in perpetuity now. We focus as of right now on Broadway, off-Broadway, and national tours, and obviously including non-union national tours in that. And so we're kind of on a rolling basis of recruitment. We have a roster of amazing mentors who are just kind of waiting in the wings very patiently. We also were able to expand our accessibility offering. So we have a deaf actor who's one of our mentors, who was a swing on Grey House on Broadway. She's amazing. She's a huge advocate for the deaf community in theater. And so knowing that like we can offer that as a resource if we get a deaf or hard of hearing mentee that comes to us, that's great. I have mentored several people. One of them, it was interesting because I had a college student who's at NYU right now, who reached out. I'm Asian American, she's also Asian American, and she was like in the shit. And she was like, are you mentoring college students? I was like, technically no, but we can talk. And so I've spent a lot of time with her. But from my perspective, it was almost, and I think Kate and I have had this discussion a lot as well, how 25% of it is the logistics and is, here is what a tracking sheet is. Here is a template in case you want to use that. Here's how I structure my information management. Take what is helpful to you, leave what is not. The other 75% of it is how to deal with the culture. And because just as a swing, it is still very stereotypical that you are considered the bottom of the barrel and you are treated like the bottom of the barrel while you are working exponentially harder than everybody else. And you have to be so multilaterally skilled more than anybody else in the building, except for maybe the stage managers. And so the cultural aspects of it, I think, were much more the heavier lift. Like, how do we show up for ourselves? How do we ask for what we need? How do we deal with the sense of isolation? And, like I've been bullied as a swing, like just out and out treated really badly. And so, there's so much, I always go back to empathy when it comes to this, especially when we're talking about students. Like, where is the foundational empathy coming from? Because that will determine how you move through the market. But so much of it is cultural. Kate, I'm interested in kind of like what your kind of ratio of logistics to culture was for your mentees.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think it was very similar with my mentees, and one in particular who was right out of college and booked a national tour. So there was a lot of, as we were just talking about, logistics and just being like, this is how you do the job, because as we're talking about, except for all of you lovely people, it's not taught at a lot of colleges. So I would say about the same. I would say 25% logistics of like, this is what it actually means to swing. This is the options of how you could track your characters. And then 75%, yeah, I think it's also, there's a lot of like emotional support needed as well for these new swings. Especially in an industry like theater with no HR, no mental health support in general. Swinging is a very emotionally, mentally challenging job. So it's a lot of like reassuring, validating feelings and being like, no, you're not, you're not crazy. You're not insane. Like, this is an insane situation that you're being thrown into. And also a lot of, as Joanna said, reassuring people like, no, you need to advocate for yourself. Like, this is a situation where you do go to your stage manager. You need to ask for what you need here, because as we know, there's so much, at least in my college experience, I was taught always say yes, like, don't be the person that's like, actually, we might need this, like, just keep your head down, say yes to everything. And I had to do a lot of unlearning that, right? Once I got out of college. So in my mentorship and when I'm mentoring these new swings, it's a lot of encouraging them to stand up for what they need and just know their worth. And yeah, that's most of what the mentorship is, and that's what I would want to pass on to these kids who might be swings eventually.
That is so it's great to hear the stats, and like you're just two people, but like you have a lot of access to a lot of swings, and you're talking about it all the time. But as professors, it's good to know, because I don't always get the reality of how they're feeling, right? They want to do the work and they want to be artists. So just checking in with that, for me, just hearing that those stats is to warn them that if you're going to go into one of these jobs, that is a part of it inevitably at some point. I mean, I know you're going to have the breakdown in the hallway outside the dressing room, but or at the Cosmic Diner around the corner. But it's just like it's just good to always like check in. I walk by Cosmic Diner every time I'm in New York, and I'm like, I had a breakdown in there. But like it's just really, it's important to check in with their mental health, and not make everything about it, but also just let them know that you're available to that, or that, it's going to be a part of it. Yes, Jacob, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I were you done? I also think like in our um working in higher ed, in our productions, right? I think it's great that we're, yes, train the swings, but I also think there's a thing that train the playing company as well. I think that there's great opportunity to swing people into rehearsal as much as possible so that they get a chance to run it. And also, like, I know when I started, I came into a company with some Broadway divas, and I was scared to death. I was like, you don't look at her in the eye, because if you're in the wrong place, she's going to stab you. Or, it wasn't like that, but it just felt like, oh my gosh. So I think it's just recognizing that with the playing company too, of like, people are going to go on and they're going to make mistakes, and it's okay, and your show's going to be fine, and this is how we all work together. Um, Instead of people getting set in their ways and like, this is what I do, and oh, I have this bit with this person that's really not part of the choreography, but you're supposed to do that bit when you go on, because then it will mess up my show. Like, I'm trying to, like, let's get rid of that.
That's so true, Jacob. Yeah, I've seen that a million times. I just wanted to say, I think, you know, Joanna, I haven't been in that situation, but I've seen so many of those situations of people getting abused as swings and talked down to. And yeah, I've seen some insane situations. But I think, my biggest thing, I think I said this earlier, is it's not like the mechanics of the job in general is one thing, but I've found that it's the mental part of the job that is the hardest for people to deal with. But not being on stage 8 shows a week is the hardest. And it's hard for me. I don't know if we have time, but I'd love to hear what any of you have to say about how do you, especially for younger people that are in college age and coming out of college, how do you explain that to them? And I try and keep everything positive too, because I want them to continue to be positive and excited about the industry. But then how do you talk about the harder things of like, you're gonna be frustrated. You're not gonna get, no one's patting you on the back when you do a triple split track and you save the show, and it's over and people just go home because that's your job. How do you?
Right.
Yeah.
And Corey, I think there's something else with the higher education. Like, our shows run one weekend, 2 weekends, sometimes if we're lucky. So we have students understudying that are going to learn something and never get to perform it. Right? We're not in a long run. You're never going on stage. So I think that adds additional layer of trickery there. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, and what do you do with that? Right.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I'll be fully transparent. After the combination of Sweeney and The Connector, which were both so wildly fulfilling shows in wildly different ways, I made the decision that I will never swing another show again. Like, my team knows, do not submit me to swing. There's also, I'm fine to admit, I'm a leading lady and there's ego there. And also, I know what makes my heart pound the most. And I know that I want to be one of those people. I'm so hungry to be on stage every night and digging and exploring. And I'm also very hungry to be on stage every night, caring for the people and supporting the people who are not on stage every night. Like, I cannot wait to be leading a Broadway show and setting an example for how to care for the swings and understudies. I am so excited to be in that position, right? And I think, you know, to the question of like, how do we teach these young students how to kind of manage that? I do think it always goes back to the sense of self. What is your sense of self? I just know about myself. I need to be on stage the whole time, or I don't want the job. And also, I think there's a lot of power in affinity. Nicole Johnson of Harriet Tubman Effect speaks a lot about finding your people, finding your affinity within the building, right? And I was at Sweeney, I was so lucky. Like, Swingy Todd over there was the best group of humans who just scooped me up, and they were like, whatever you need. Also, we are besties for life. Like, we're still all very, very close. And so I was very lucky to be integrated into that group of humans where when we weren't on stage, we had that sense of camaraderie. We had that sense of community. We leaned on each other. We were running things when we needed to. We were frolicking in the green room and talking shit when we needed to. We had that affinity there. But I think there has to be kind of a constant cycle of self-analysis in order to manage your expectations and your mental well-being. You have to be able to be honest with yourself. And some of these students are going to swing a couple shows and realize that it's not for them. And others of them, like Correy, going back to the positive side of it, others are going to swing a show for the first time and realize that this is their career. And they are going to be in demand, and they are going to be proud of it, and they are going to be absolute icons in whatever they do because they love it so much. But I think we are not incentivized to be honest with ourselves about our boundaries and our needs in this industry. We are never incentivized to be really authentically true to us, because it is the show must go on and you do what is demanded of you. And to a certain extent, yeah, that's the job. Like, you're a swing, you're not on stage all the time. You signed the contract, this is the job, right? But I do think if we are able to teach them how to be honest and authentic with what really makes their heart pound, then they can learn how to be choosy about what they audition for and what they chase, and be kinder to themselves if they are making mistakes or if they're not in love with a job, while maintaining very high standards for their work ethic, very high standards for their integrity. You might not like the job, or you might not realize until you get into it that you don't like the job. You still got to do the job. You still have to show up to work. You're still setting an example for people in ways that you might not even know. And that is your responsibility, to maintain the integrity of the culture and the product. So I think it's kind of, it's multi-layered, but a swing can multitask.
Yeah, I don't swing anymore either. I stepped aside from it as well. I loved my time doing it. Loved it. Learned so much, but I don't swing anymore either. So.
Never again.
This is so interesting to me because, like, was a swing dance captain for like a decade, and then I did a show where I was one track, and I was like, "What? This is so boring. We just do the same thing every night." And yeah, and so after that, I went back to being a swing, and I was like, "Nah, I don't really." And again, it's so weird because I get that, like, this is more of a rare experience, but like, I love rehearsal. I like the balance of it. There's something when you're in rehearsal all the time. There's something so fun about just getting to be a person in the show one night. But I like both, and for me, I don't know. That wasn't for me. It's interesting.
I love what I did. Ain't Too Proud. I loved swinging that show. I probably wouldn't want to do that show any other way, but it was only because I was always on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was a lead in that. There didn't go a week that I wasn't on 4 or 5 times a week.
Uh-huh.
Get those bumps, baby.
Yeah. Let me tell you about it.
Ryan, it's so similar. I'm just gonna add a little personal to it because I'm like you. I was at a crossroads when I got an audition for Fontaine on Broadway, and I did the tape, and I was like, it's fine. It was around the time Anne Hathaway, and I looked like her when I was younger, and I was like, I know I'm getting this. And then I did the tape, and it was fine. I was like, I'd rather be one of those whores, like I'd rather be a swing who covers all the whores. Like, that sounds like more fun. Like, I don't really want to stand in a spotlight and sing. Like, I'm more of a dancer anyway, but like it was just a moment where I was like, I don't even want that pressure to stand in a spotlight and sing that every night. Like I literally want to figure out all the other tracks and how the puzzle goes together. Like I was just so much more challenged. It's so interesting how that happens and you identify your strengths within a company. And I'm just on this quest to see if I can help students figure it out a little quicker than when you're like getting paid to do it. So I'm just so thankful for us all kind of sharing. I go ahead, Jacob. I saw your hand up.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat about a understudy run, and I'll just talk from higher ed. I I have now put in the last like couple of semesters that I've been doing this understudy run, um, where they are there's a chart, you know, you're swinging this, you're going on for this, and this role, and I've also made it where I found very successful. They can invite one person to the run so that their roommate can see them play the lead role in school. I just think that's important. And it's in rehearsal, no costumes, no nothing. But that has been really, and it's hard because we run out of time and you're like, but I think it's so important for their education to get a understudy run. Um, so if you can do that, I would advocate for you adding that understudy run into your school. Yes. Yep. It's just like a rehearsal. We run everything. The question was, does the music director play for that run? Yes, they do.
Yeah, we're starting to put it on the production calendar for every show this year at FSU. Um, I I mean, this takes a lot of work, but I often, when I'm directing and choreographing, I have not done it at FSU, but at prior institutions, I actually double cast the show and sometimes also have a standby. And I always have like 2 to 4 swings. The big thing I'll say for the educators in the room is costumes. Like at most institutions I've been at, it is not fair to do that, and it takes a big conversation and budgets and to double cast or to ensure that your understudies are going to go on. But the big thing that I always say to my bosses and to is it's about process. I don't need the costumes, I don't need to double cast, but I definitely need understudies for the entire cast, and having that processed based in that, having that final understudy run like Jacob's talking about, and it being well attended and it being like a performance with like in all blacks or whatever, if they want to dress towards the character or whatever, they need that completion. They need that moment to show their friends, and we even let parents come, but it's not a performance. It's maybe not even on the set, but they get like that experience because they should be getting the education because it's a process, right? Ryan, at Montclair, do you do understudy runs? Are you involved in production?
This past year was my first year, and as I'm looking at the calendar for this coming year, I'm trying to figure out where it goes. So, like our fall musical runs 2 weekends, and we usually have a pickup rehearsal, which I saw, like Sarah said, my goal is just to make it not even a run through, just to maybe have a full understudy stumble through, or even just a rehearsal where it's them with the full company, does feel so necessary. But we haven't done it in the past. I wish I had figured it out last year, but I didn't. Professionally, I've seen it done once where we had
Professionally, what?
one understudy run before the show opened. But that
Oh,
was, I mean, it was Hamilton in Puerto Rico, and it was like, 2/3 of the company was alumni, and they were opening a new company, so they wanted the covers to all at least get one run through in costume.
yeah.
That never happens.
I did want to ask you one thing, Ryan, and about, because you're the only one in the room, I believe, that like was a dance supervisor and a professor and a performer. I mean, you kind of done it all, right? But what did you
Well,
learn
as I
from
said, all I ever wanted to be was a swing.
me too? Um, what about dance supervision and then kind of being their boss, and then you were a swing for so long, did you find that you were mentoring like Joanna and Cate are officially doing? Was there a lot of mentorship involved in that, or were you just kind of like, this
Yeah.
person's not working out and you gave up, or like, is that how that's
No.
working? Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of mentorship, but again, it's something I'm passionate about. So, I if anyone who was interested and gravitated to me for that kind of information, like I embraced it. But it's a professional setting. If somebody's doing their show, I never was like, oh, let me see your notes or something like I would do with students. Um, so that I really liked because sometimes you get people like on Hamilton, Chloe, Nadon, Enrique, who has now swung 3 shows on Broadway since she came out to the tour that I was on, and was fresh out of like school. She's a science person. She was like a science major at Northwestern, and Stephanie Clemens was like, "Oh, I'm sending you this one." Like she knew before Chloe even arrived. She was like, "You're gonna want to spend some time with her, and this is gonna be her career." Um, things like that. To me, again, those are like, what more fun opportunity is there to like cultivate that piece that might be in someone else that I know exists in me, that is rare, that is, it is one of 10,000 performers that are like, yeah, I'm a total weirdo, like I'd like to play 10 roles instead of one, please. So it happens a bit, but more, like anything on a big commercial show, like you live in triage. That's just how it goes. And I think it is really nice to have a supervisor or somebody like that who has been through it, and it helps with some of the problematic things in a long range show, like when you lose a dance captain or you lose a great swing, and the company is used to somebody who's really comfortable with 6 roles, and now this new person really isn't comfortable with even one. And so like it just gives like it gives you a buffer for that. It's when apocalyptic things go wrong, like, the turntable stops, it's like not only do you have the dance captains, but you also have a supervisor. So it's more hands, when the place is on fire, like more than anything. And again, you can divvy up the workload. Like, one dance captain is teaching mostly the women and one dance captain is teaching mostly the men, and I'm teaching mostly the principals. But just like swinging, you cross over. The dance captain is on tonight, so I'm going to take this female ensemble rehearsal. It just helps smooth the process because, as you know, in any show anywhere ever, like producers are not going to overextend. This is not NASA where like redundancy is important. It's like they're going to get by with just enough to keep the curtain up. So if they have spent up on a supervisor or a resident or something like that, it just gives you a little bit more coverage.
Yeah, we are at time, but I wanted to end with that. And you're so uplifting because I just want to be able firsthand in my classroom, at least, to tell students that supervisors aren't going to be your mean old boss. There are people out there that are going to be on your side. And most dance captains were swings or are swings, and most supervisors are associate or assistant choreographers, or so like usually, it's just nice to hear you did the big one, you did Hamilton, and that you were on the swing side and you were there to mentor, and that it doesn't end with us educators, that there are people looking out for them in the real world. But I want to thank you all so much. I'm gonna grab there was a question about charts. And if you go to Stage Right, not that I have any connection to Jeff Whiting, but those are how you make charts. That's the kind of Stage Right software. That's what all the Broadway shows, not all, but a lot of Broadway shows use. And that's what I use in the classroom as well. So I'm happy to answer questions about Stage Right if anyone in the chat wants to email me. I do not work for them, but I can tell you what's worked in my classroom. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Cate. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Correy. I will be following up because this was an amazing panel and we had a lot more questions we could have answered, but thank you for your time, your energy, your talents, and hopefully we'll work on educating swings and getting better ones out there in New York. Thank you so much.